Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. This is Roust, and he is the most garbage healer to ever exist. One day, his party was getting wrecked by an 8-headed dragon. Their gold-covered leader Margulis blamed Roust because his best healing spell was Intense Optimism. The human trophy decided to run for his life, and later he kicked the useless healer from the party. Roust blamed them for staying up all night wrestling in baby oil at a Diddy party, but Margulis put it to a vote, and even the little mage girl said that Roust was useless trash. This is why everyone looks like they just saw a car crash when a girl named Naru asks Roust to join her party. Everyone begs her not to throw her life away by teaming up with him because she will end up broke like most anime recap viewers. However, Naru isn't worried about cash because she's been selling her bathwater to lonely guys on the internet. Besides being a self-made entrepreneur with no need for money, Naru has a secret reason for trying to party with Roust. Roust agrees to team up with her, and Naru shows some real stalker vibes as she stares at our boy. Roust is told not to take Naru to the dungeon because she's a newbie, but Roust is an alpha male and doesn't listen to anyone. The genius detective Naru points out that Roust is pretty confident for a guy that can't even heal a paper cut, but Roust acts like he's hearing impaired and keeps it moving. With enough confidence to slap a dragon in the face, Naru marches into the dungeon and instantly wipes out a group of goblins. This only adds to her overinflated ego, but she's quickly humbled when Roust must rescue her from being introduced to all the spikes in a spike trap. Their next challenge is a goblin that looks like it bench presses rocks for a living, but the confident Naru attacks it, like she doesn't know that it could punt her across the room. It of course doesn't go well, but Roust shows the first glimpse of his hidden strength when he rescues her. Once again, Naru's detective-level brain cells are hard at work, and she wonders if Roust is really just a healer, but he easily manages to change the subject again. Roust wants to heal her wounds, but Naru's worried that he might mess up and transform her into a potato. Roust uses all his power to heal her tiny little scrape, and they amaze a guild clerk with how many stones they ripped out of monsters. The clerk named Amherst encourages the pair to keep stomping on monsters because she's a greedy little hustler, and she gets a cut of the cash whenever they sell stones to the guild. Later, we learn Naru's secret. Years ago, she was healed by Roust after her group was attacked by monsters. Instead of being upset about everyone around her being ravaged by beasts, Naru was super happy, and she promised to grow up so she could protect Roust one day. Naru is now upset because Roust is too dumb to recognize her because she has blue hair now, but for some inexplicable reason, she decides not to just come out and tell him. Instead, she will just keep protecting him. Unfortunately, her plan immediately fails during their next trip, when she learns a basic fact that even children know: physical attacks don't work against ghosts. Now a party of two highly questionable adventurers, they work together to defeat the Lynch. Roust uses his trusty Pokeball to heal Naru's wounds, and they feed the treasure-hungry clerk, who's a fiend for the shiny stones. Elsewhere, Roust's old party has made an upgrade in the looks department with a new healer, but they are shocked when she refuses to fight on the front lines. They explain that Roust did this with no problem, but instead of realizing that Roust might be really powerful because he was the one that managed to cut off one of the dragon's heads off last time, the dumb walking trophy case decides that they can win without Roust. It turns out that they couldn't, and only now, after taking a beating, worse than the one your bank account took after you bought a 50-cent candy bar, does Margulis realize that Roust was a valuable member of their team. Margulis then begs Roust, like you beg God for a girlfriend, to come back to the team. He even tries to say that calling Roust a useless sack of potatoes before was just a misunderstanding. Naru quickly puts a stop to the gaslighting, but the gold-plated adventurer accuses her of manipulating Roust with her fake nails and BBL. This proves to be a big mistake for the urine-colored knight, as Roust drops the nice guy act, and he threatens to snap Margulis in half if he ever talks about Naru's BBL ever again. Margulis angrily searches for a new party member, and the Phantom of the Opera steps forward. His name is Sieg, and he instantly proves how strong he is, so the cowardly power leader has him join the team. Margulis is feeling some post-fight clarity, but we see that the rest of his team has gone behind his cowardly back to beg Roust for help. The delusional Margulis wants them to fight the dragon again, but the girls want help from the only guy that actually dealt damage to the beast. The crazy little mage goes through a roller coaster of emotions and apologizes for voting to kick Roust out of the party. Roust feels some true compassion as he watches her sob, but he still rejects the little backstabber. Martha Stewart breaks up the tension with some food to fatten up the skinny little magic girl, and Lyra pulls Roust aside to try and convince him some more. She says that they can't leave Margulis because he has embarrassing pictures of them from the last guild party, so Rouse begins to wonder if he should help. Later, Naru tears through some orcs the same way you tear through a bag of Cheetos at 3 AM. Our blue-haired bombshell of a heroine demonstrates exactly why she's the perfect partner by single-handedly dispatching the entire group of monsters with ease. Rouse is impressed, but Naru's already eager for the next challenge. Unfortunately, Naru lost her Ozempic prescription, and she's hungry, so the next challenge ends up being lunch. The two find the perfect spot on the dirty dungeon floor, but instead of bringing some packed sandwiches, Naru surprises Roust with a huge feast. It turns out that Betty Crocker forced them to take the leftovers from earlier, but somehow Roust didn't notice Naru bringing the giant box of food. As they stuff their face holes, Roust explains what kind of monster his old teammates are up against. The Hydra is a truly terrible foe with more muscles than a JoJo protagonist and a body covered in scales, strong enough to deflect both physical and magical attacks. As if being indestructible wasn't enough, it's also filled with protagonist-killing poison. These dragons are somewhat rare, but among other monsters of its caliber, it's the most common. Thanks to this, the Hydra has been studied extensively by past adventurers, and they have come up with a number of methods in order to deal with it. Its poison will have anyone spraying blood from both ends, like they just ate a Taco Bell taco filled with broken glass, but luckily there's an antidote available for purchase. It's rather expensive, however, which is why Roust's old broke-ass team didn't have one before. Roust explains that his old team will have to rely entirely on the new healer's detoxifying magic. Naru can't help but feel a little nervous hearing all this, but Roust soothes her fears when he describes the kind of people in his old team. Its leader Margulis may look like the free hero you get in mobile games, but he's actually a really exceptional swordsman. As long as he doesn't run for his life and doesn't underestimate his opponent, Margulis can be quite formidable. Siberia is also no slouch with her top-notch speed and agility. Her talent for stealth could be enough to sneak up on any monster, even one with as many heads and eyes as the animators decided to slap on to this thing called a Hydra. Naru doesn't like hearing Roust speak so highly of his old squad because they dropped him, the same way you guys drop an anime after the first filler episode. However, Roust says that the only language he knows is the truth, so Naru keeps her opinions to herself for now. Instead, she mentions how tired she's getting challenging the same dungeon day after day. Roust agrees that it might be time to move on, and Naru excitedly brings up the wetlands that are not too far away. Meanwhile, in the wetlands not too far away, we join Lightning Sword. They're in the middle of fierce combat with the Hydra that looks like it was solely created to remind side characters that they're not main characters. Margulis manages to land a cutting blow against one of the many heads, and their latest member Sieg follows it up with a slash of his own that nearly decapitates the beast. Pressing his advantage, the masked swordsman readies another assault, but as his blade reaches the beast, he pulls back and retreats. Margulis angrily calls him out for not finishing the job, but Sieg counters by asking if Margulis would really be alright with him taking all the glory for himself. He believes that Margulis the Trophy Man deserves this trophy for himself. After all, Margulis the Hydra Slayer does have a better ring to it than all his other stupid nicknames. Eager for me to stop making fun of him, Margulis charges headlong at the monster, but he's quickly sent packing after his foolhardy attack. Lyra's busy treating their rogue, but she can't believe that their brain-rotted leader is charging straight at the monster. He has no chance because the dragon's basically a walking tank with more blackheads than Siberia's back. Lyra continues to complain, but Siberia says that's just who he is. She likes bad boys, and she finds his stupidity rather charming. With her injuries healed and her terrible choice in men, the rogue rushes back to make more poor life choices. Just then, Lyra's attention shifts to Sieg, who seems to be merely observing from a distance, and she wonders what he's planning. The fight has dragged on for a while now, and the Hydra is beginning to slow down. Siberia's distractions allow Margulis to deal considerable damage, and in this world with no child labor laws, Armia is working overtime with her magical assault. With their powers combined, Lyra's confident that the Hydra will soon fall. Her hopes are shattered when the Hydra sends a huge rock into the chest of the little child laborer, who now wishes she was assembling Nikes like the other kids. Amira is terrified to see that the monster has now fixed its gaze on her. She lets out a blood-curdling scream as it draws close, and things take a dark turn as something strange begins to happen. A dark smoke-like substance begins emanating from her body that no one can identify until Sieg points out that it's fear. As it turns out, fear is exactly what monsters like the Hydra feed on to grow stronger. What's odd is that fear is not something usually visible to the naked eye like this. The team soon realizes that they have been surrounded by the smoke as it flows in from every direction. Lyra's shocked to realize that what they are seeing is mana, something only found in the deepest parts of the labyrinth. Mana, fear, whatever this mist is, the Hydra absorbs it hungrily, and it begins to change. With enough magical power, monsters are capable of mutating, something that can often increase their abilities and turn them into even more terrifying opponents. Unfortunately, instead of transforming into something truly creative, the low-budget anime studio just changed its color and threw on some more heads. Still, the beast is several times more powerful than it was before, and Lyra never imagined that she would see a transformation happen in real life. There is no way for a lightning sword to beat this new and improved monster, so Sieg tells Lyra to take care of the mage, and Margulis that it's time to retreat. Margulis, the legendary Hydra Slayer, does not retreat however. He charges forth once more, intent on taking at least one head as his prize, but as his blade makes contact with the Hydra scales, it cracks and snaps in two, completely failing him, like the cheap gaming mouse you bought fails you right in the middle of a match. Left defenseless, Margulis nearly finds a new home at the back of the Hydra's throat, but Roust appears to save him just in time. Margulis is shocked to see his old teammate, but there isn't much time to talk. With Naru's help, the two manage to drive back the Hydra, but Roust is needed somewhere else. Sieg points out that Roust is a mere healer and sends him off to go treat Armia while he holds the beast back. Lyra has used up all her side character points, so she can no longer help their fallen mage. Luckily, Roust arrives with plenty of his plot armor tokens, so he uses his humble heal ability on Armia. Lyra exclaims that the basic heal spell won't nearly be enough, but she is stunned to see him use another, and then another heal on top of that. Lyra is confused and wonders if Roust is glitching out as he says heal a bunch of times, but Siberia explains that Roust is just doing what he always does, by layering heals. Even the Golden Boy says that this is pretty common for Roust, but to Lyra that makes no sense whatsoever. Putting a band-aid over an injury helps, but putting 10 band-aids on top of the first doesn't make the wound heal any faster. Fortunately, this snobby know-it-all is proven quite wrong when Amira reawakens thanks to Roust. Lyra can only wonder just who Roust really is, and Amira thanks him for keeping her alive so she won't be fired for leaving work early. Nearby, Sieg has done what he can to halt the Hydra, but it appears that the monster has been waiting for Roust. It's as if it remembers him and now wants revenge. Thankfully, Naru and Sieg are there to help as the three ready themselves for the dangerous fight ahead. The rest stand back and decide to watch from the sidelines while the real heroes go to work. The great Hydra Slayer has no complaints either, but only because his sword is broken, not because he's a coward. The intense fight begins as Naru lands a stunning punch and Roust capitalizes on the opening she provides. Meanwhile, Sieg's great sword cleaves a head clean off in a single stroke. Margulis is shocked to see that his blade didn't break, but Lyra explains that it's a magical sword. Margulis is stunned because he has heard of this legendary blade, and it's way better than his pathetic sword that his girlfriend always laughs at. Just then, a costly mistake by Naru sees one of her strikes countered by the Hydra, and she is thrown to the ground. Disturbingly, the monster doesn't attack, but instead seems to take her hostage and dares Roust to fight it one-on-one. Lyra comes in with more epic world building by explaining that monsters don't just get stronger when they mutate into slight variations of themselves, they get smarter too. This monster now has more intelligence in one head than their entire party, and its heart is full of vengeance. Roust is no punk, so he tells everyone to stay back, and he accepts the challenge. Roust dashes forward, but the scene quickly cuts to a disappointed old man. When we return to the fight, we see that Roust has been defeated. Even though the dragon has a million IQ points, it's still not above flexing on noobs, so it taunts Roust with a battle cry. Roust just hopes that the dragon won't start teabagging him, and he reaches out to his loyal teammate before losing consciousness. The others tremble in fear as they're out of options, but Roust's body begins to pulse. Everyone is shocked as our hero finds the strength to rise again, this time burning with a terrible aura. It turns out that the mysterious old man was not disappointed by Roust's weakness. He was disappointed that the power inside Roust that should have remained in eternal slumber has now awakened. Just then, a glowing horn sprouts from Roust's forehead as he's infused with a sudden burst of power. The dragon instantly senses the danger, so it moves in to end the fight quickly, but it's too late. With one fell swoop, Roust destroys the Hydra, cutting it down to size, before he himself collapses unconscious. When our favorite OP healer awakens, he finds a very worried Naru leaning over him. Thankfully, Lyra was there to heal him back to health, but she reminds him that such magic doesn't grow on trees, and she'll be sending him her bill later, and it might hurt more than the Hydra. She asks what all that horny business was earlier, but Roust has no clue what she's talking about. Regardless, Roust's old teammates change their attitudes faster than you change clothes after realizing you haven't showered for a week. Margulis is delighted to realize that his good buddy Roust is so strong, and he's convinced that with him at their side, they could even beat the master of the labyrinth himself. Siberia reminds him that no one has even seen the master, and says that they should slow down a bit. For the time being, they can sell all the magical stones they gathered after defeating the Hydra. Such a haul split between the three of them is enough to make them all quite rich. Roust points out that more than 3 people helped, but that's not how the lightning sword operates. Margulis deems that the 2 newbies on the team hardly did enough to earn a share, and he thinks that Naru is simply Roust's trophy waifu. Margulis then declares that he, the rogue and Roust, can claim the prize for themselves. Even poor Armia isn't included because child labor is cheap anyway. The evil Margulis even goes as far as to suggest that Armia might never wake up, so they might as well just sell her for some extra coin, considering how useless she is as a mage. Naru is quickly fed up with this dark turn of events, so she knocks Margulis off his feet with one solid punch. The fallen trophy case starts whining that guild members are forbidden from fighting each other, and he demands that others testify against Naru. Naturally, the people he just pissed off didn't see a thing, and they have nothing to testify to. Luckily for him, his partner in crime is there to back him up, and she says that she'll let the guild know that they're collaborating to break the law. Sieg has a change of heart and says that he might have seen something after all. However, much to Margulis' chagrin, he reveals that what he saw was someone trying to human traffic a young girl. Lyra agrees some pervert definitely tried to sell an unconscious person off, an evil felony that demands punishment, even in a fictional anime world. Sieg says that he can't let this go, and Margulis is shocked when he hints at what his real identity is. Afterwards, Margulis and Siberia get their just desserts and are tied up, like you are when you're watching anime and your friends want to hang out. Sieg takes off his tiny mask that hides absolutely nothing to reveal his true identity. His real name is Sieg, an absolute shocker by the animators. It turns out that he's an adventurer from the Royal Adventurers Guild, which is a pretty big deal. He explains that as part of the Royal Guild, he is there to police other adventurers and to safeguard the town, a job usually meant for local adventurers who have been lacking as of late. When he first arrived to investigate, he immediately ran into Lightning Sword and has been closely watching them ever since, behind his perfect disguise. Sieg was completely unrecognizable behind the mask, and he witnessed a lot, so it's no surprise that Margulis and Siberia are judged to be unfit for the guild and will be expelled from the association. The 2 are likely to end up serving a lifetime of forced labor, mopping up baby oil after every Diddy party. Their wailing and whining begin, but the 2 are ignored as Roust asks to speak with Sieg in private. Amazingly, he asks that his old teammates be spared for some reason. Roust explains that once, those 2 were good adventurers with dreams and aspirations, but were corrupted by the idea of being the very best. They may crave wealth and social status, but they aren't truly evil, just misguided and lost. Roust's speech works way better than mine does when trying to get out of a speeding ticket, so Sieg agrees and releases the 2 of them. However, he makes sure that they understand that he might always be watching, and they will never know it because he will be wearing his mask again. The lucky pair don't need any more convincing and quickly run off, hopefully right out of this story for good. Sieg explains that even if they had been expelled, they would only go on being their devious selves, trying to human traffic anyone they came across. This way, as adventurers, the guild can keep an eye on them. However, Amherst isn't so sure about that. Keeping tabs on those 2 might have been easy in the capital city, where high-level adventurers hide their identity using sophisticated disguises, but this is just a small town, and they don't have those kinds of resources. Sieg agrees and suggests that he stay a while to make sure that things stay on the level around here. With all that said and done, Naru isn't feeling the best about what just happened. She regrets convincing Roust to help his former teammates, but Roust isn't worried. He may still have feelings for his team, but he feels good about the way things ended and has no regrets. He actually thanks Naru and asks her to keep being his partner, to which she happily accepts. That night, Zeke and Lyra discuss his true mission. As Zeke explains it, he's here to investigate the town in light of all the mutations going on, like the Hydra they just brought down. It turns out that Zeke used another disguise on top of his old one to hide from even the higher-ups. It was a mustache, and it practically wiped his existence off the face of the earth. With the information he gathered, he thinks that the Adventurers Guild is directly responsible for the mutations, and he even suspects that the boss in charge might be behind it all. He asks Lyra to help him and to form a party together like they did in the old days. Lyra, while hesitant, agrees on one condition: Amira the mage has to join the party too. Zeke welcomes a new addition and says that he's going to need all the help he can get, especially now that he has witnessed the kind of monster-like strength Rouse displayed in their fight. Someone like Rouse demands all of their attention. Later, we see that the three failures, Sieg, Lyra, and Armia, have banded together. The young mage seems pretty shaken up after doing so much child labor, so Rouse congratulates her and the others on teaming up. Rouse and Naru then begin the day by heading to the guild hall. The battle with the Hydra has left them quite a few magic stones to exchange for cold hard cash, but Rouse is more interested in taking on their first quest. He explains that there's more to being an adventurer than just fighting monsters. Hunting down important items and defending those who can't defend themselves also constitute the duties and responsibilities of an adventurer. He wants Naru to gain as much experience as she can, and Naru nearly passes out when she realizes just how much he cares about her. At the guild, the pair are met with strange and venomous glares from the others. It seems news has spread of Rouse's victory over the Hydra, and he warns his partner that there might be some dirtbags who want to steal their magical stones. One of these dirtbags, named Marmal, approaches Rouse and asks if he has a moment to talk. When Rouse seems a little hesitant, Marmal tells the rest of his cronies to go kick rocks so they can have a more personal conversation. Rouse determines that this guy doesn't want his precious stones, but is still a surprise when Marmal suddenly bows his head and apologizes on behalf of all the adventurers. Despite knowing what kind of guy Margulis was, they did nothing about it and never bothered trying to help Rouse. To make things worse, they even made fun of his dumb-looking hair and his bland personality. They knew him then as the incompetent Rouse and never gave him a second thought. Naru is ready to shove her foot down this guy's throat, so she tells Marno that bowing isn't enough. If he really wants to apologize, he should polish Rouse's sword and kiss his stones. Marno thinks that's going too far, but this just makes Naru even more furious. It hardly compares to the years and years Rouse had to put up with their disrespect, but it's a good start. Rouse, trying to avoid being cancelled for forcing someone to polish his sword, says that none of that is necessary. The truth is, he's still incompetent when it comes to healing, and not much has changed, and he would actually prefer it if they just kept hurling insults at him. The two shake on it, and it feels like all the tension evaporates from the guild hall, giving our heroes the chance to sell off their sweet loot. Amherst stares at the magical stone they've brought her, and like every woman I've ever shown my Pokemon collection to, she is in awe of how big and weird it is. Rouse suspects its strange shape is a result of the monster's mutation, and Naru is worried it will affect the price. It turns out that she's right. The guild is willing to pay 10 times or more what they normally would for something so valuable and rare. The fact that it mutated at all is of some concern though. Monsters shouldn't be absorbing enough mana to change like that outside of the labyrinth. The other scattered reports of monsters acting strangely only compounds Rouse's suspicion that something is going on, and he asks why the guild doesn't just send someone to investigate. Before Amherst can answer, Mr. Handsome arrives, giving off some real main character vibes despite just being the guy in charge of the guild. He tells the pair to join him in his office, and after going over the reports, mentions that monsters transforming is rare, but not unheard of. Handsome explains that he's too good looking to deal with such trivial matters, and if Rouse is afraid, then maybe it's time for the healer to leave this town once and for all. Naru's more than a little annoyed by Mr. Stick Up His Butt, and Amherst says that's just the kind of guy he is. She then brings up Mr. Mist, the actual president of the guild. A man so old he can hardly leave his own office, and he often stumbles while going upstairs. With Mr. Mist's obvious mental decline, and without having to go through a competitive selection process, Handsome has taken on the president's duties. He has a reputation among the other guild employees as being strict and no nonsense. Rouse isn't into all the workplace gossip, so he has to be shown all the available quests. Naru is appalled by how paltry some of them are, like this one where some guy just wants to go fishing in the underground lake of the labyrinth and needs an escort. Amherst, eager to collect more racks, reminds her that every job with a reward is a job worth doing. Rouse then comes across a mission to defeat a bunch of monsters. Naru jumps at the idea of a worthy mission, but Amherst says that it's a no-go. It turns out that a phoenix is lurking dangerously close to a teleportation circle they would have to go through. The quest would earn them a ton of coin, but a healer and a martial artist trying to fight a phoenix is suicide. They don't have long-range attacks, so in order for them to accept the quest, they would need to have at least a warrior, a mage, and a healer that can actually use area heals. If they're really interested in defeating the beast and claiming the massive reward, the two of them are going to need help. Our two heroes become excited when they realize that they know the three perfect adventurers who recently formed the party. Lyra and Siege are interested in the job, with Lyra having the audacity to whisper about Rouse right in front of him, as if he has lost his hearing. She tells Sieg that this is a good chance to observe the banished healer, since that was his reason for sticking around in the first place. They then ask Armia what she thinks, but the little wizard is too busy wondering why her life choices have led to her joining these losers. Armia decides to just do what they think is best, and says that she's just surprised that Rouse would ever want to team up with her again after she top 10 anime betrayed him. Our hero's quick to forgive and forget, and he holds no ill will towards his old teammate. They have only the future to look forward to now, and that future involves teaming up to kick some Phoenix ass. The gang get to work getting prepared for the next day, from dealing with guild paperwork to rounding up supplies and buying the necessary equipment. Roust and Naru are on their way to grab some potions when she is suddenly hugged from behind by a shirtless stranger. Freaking out a fighter is a good way to get launched across the street, and Naru breaks free and takes a swing, only to realize it's someone she knows. Miss Ralma calls herself a top-notch enchanter and adventurer known as the Fire God, a terrible nickname that she picked for herself. Naru's surprise at seeing an old acquaintance is quickly replaced with suspicion when she asks whether Ralma was sent by her father. Ralma confirms that she was sent by Naru's father, seeing as his favorite child ran off on her own to elope with some random boy. However, what is surprising is that Naru isn't the only one who knows Ralma. When the redhead notices that some boy they were talking about, she is surprised to realize that it's her old useless student, Roust. As it turns out, he trained under her for a short time, but his lack of skill made them part ways. As for Naru, Ralma's an old friend of her father's. With that exciting context out of the way, Ralma asks the healer for a moment alone with Naru. They need to discuss some important family matters, which doesn't involve an outsider like him. Rouse grows a spine out of nowhere, and he refuses to leave. Naru's important to him because they are partners, and he's not some outsider. If Ralma's here to take her back to her father like he suspects, then he isn't going anywhere. Ralma's amused by her former disciple's brazenness, and asks if he thinks he can really stop her. Rouse tells her to just try, so the legendary God of Flames sends out the slowest fireball in anime history from the tip of her fork. Rouse dodges it with ease, and the fire's only victim is someone else's turkey leg. Naru tries to calm things down by explaining that she didn't really run away, so much as she just kind of forgot to tell anyone she was leaving. She did leave a note though, one that simply said that she was leaving to go find her big brother Roust, and she told him not to be worried. For some reason, she thought her father would be completely relieved to hear that his young, impressionable daughter was running off without a word to go chasing a strange man. Ralma demands an explanation for her utterly odd behavior, and Naru hesitates because the truth is a little awkward. Understandably, Naru is too embarrassed to reveal that she had spies watching Rouse for a long time. Eyes and ears that not only reported his whereabouts and actions, but the fact that he had been kicked out of Lightning Blade. Like any good stalker, Naru saw her chance and she took it. Rouse, seeing how uneasy his partner is, tells her that maybe she should go see her dad, especially because in order to be an adventurer, you need your parents' permission. Naru is more than a little hurt and scared to hear him say that, mostly because her father might say no, and the two of them may never see each other again. Ralma clears things up by saying that her father doesn't have a problem with his daughter becoming an adventurer. He was just worried that she would come back with a loser boyfriend. All her father wants to know is if his little girl is safe, and that she isn't dating an anime recap viewer. From what Ralma can tell, Naru is fine, and she tells Naru to leave it to her to convince her father. With that out of the way, the fire god asks her stupid apprentice to get her some wine so the girls can have a private talk about him. As his former teacher, she wonders why Naru's so captivated by such an incompetent man like him, but Naru sticks up for Roust. She defends him by going over his many strengths and skills she witnessed firsthand since partying up with him. He is strong, wise, and thoughtful, but most of all, Roust is a good man, one who puts others before himself, others like Naru, whom he has been doing everything in his power to guide and help gain experience as an adventurer. Though she was the one that came to save him, she has come to realize, like we all have, that she is nothing but a burden, and the thought of it is more than she can handle. Taking this all in, Realma explains that Roust has never sticked up for anyone in his entire life, except for Naru. He has changed because of her, and it seems like it's for the better. Realma suggests the girls stick around with her healer friend for a while longer, and bids the two of them good luck on their journey. As for her, she has her own mission. Mr. Mist, the mysterious president of the guild, has some secrets that the fire god plans to bring to light. With preparations complete and all doubts cast aside, the team of Lyra the Healer, Sieg the Saber, Army of the Wizard, and of course our favorite incompetent healer and his fighter companion are assembled and ready. There is some poor phoenix out there that's going to get wrecked. Thanks for watching my recap. Subscribe to the channel for more videos.